of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation of the Board of Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr has informed, oh, there she is. She informed that
Here.
she would be late, but she is here on time. Director Carr.
I am here.
Director Garcia has asked to be excused for tonight. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Present.
Director Leonard.
Present.
And Chair Simpson.
Present.
We have 4 present.
The chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Members, please mute your devices.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pursuant to Board Rule 1.06, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members may be participating from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public participation as possible, this meeting is being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links of which can be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes. Para las personas que desean escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de código 608-130-5362. Una vez más, para escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de código 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you very much. For each of our items of business, we will hold discussion and public hearing. Individuals who wished to speak on tonight's items were required to register in advance. I ask those who are waiting to speak to remain on the platform until you are called upon to speak. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. All speakers are asked to state their name and spell their last name before proceeding with their comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes and 15 seconds to speak. After a speaker's time is up, they may continue to follow the meeting at one of the broadcast options mentioned previously. To ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind, including inappropriate language, will not be tolerated. The chair reserves the right to remove anyone engaging in such behavior from the platform. Those removed from the platform may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to rejoin the platform. Written testimony may be submitted to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee.WI 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now, Madam Secretary, let's begin with item 1.
Item number 1 is approval of areas to be open for textbook study during the 21-22 school year for the text to be used beginning with the 22-23 school year. The recommendation is that the board approve the following areas to be open for textbook study for text to be used in the 22-23 school year. And that would be the K-8 social studies, high school citizenship, high school U.S. history, and high school world history.
Thank you. Will the administration please present this item?
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. Keith Fosley, Superintendent of Schools.
We're asking for your approval to open the textbook study for the following areas: K-8 social studies, high school citizenship, high school U.S. history, high school world history. With the approval, the committee will be formed no later than December 2021, and we hope to bring a recommendation back to you on February or March of 2022. The proposed adoption aligns the criteria to include availability of high quality materials in Spanish for the use of bilingual classrooms, as well as alternate formats such as Braille, audio, digital, large print, and accessible web-based. Thank you, and the entire team is here. And between the team and I, we can answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, is there any public testimony on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you, Chair Simpson. Would it be possible to get a copy, whether e-copy or hard copy? Well, I guess maybe I am getting ahead of myself. Have you made a selection of potential texts, or do you have a set of texts? And if so, could you provide those to us?
Administration.
Chair Simpson and members of the board, this is opening up the adoption tonight. We're asking for approval to do that. Once this is granted, we will be able to provide those materials for you and for everyone to take a close look at.
Thank you. Follow-up, Director Gokul Gandhi?
Yeah, just could you walk us through the process of once you open it, right, when we approve it tonight, or if we approve it tonight, what do the next steps look like? So, who is engaged? What's the process? What's the timeline? So if you could just walk us through between now and what it looks like to bring that back for adoption, that would be helpful.
Administration.
Director Simpson, Director Gokul Gandhi, members of the committee, Jenny Eckstein, Social Studies Curriculum Specialist from Milwaukee Public Schools. The timeline is pretty spaced out in a way where we can really take a deeper dive into what we have to look for, because there's a lot to look for. We will be, of course, going to the full board at the end of the month, and then the RFP will go out after that. The textbook companies have 3 weeks to get us their materials. That'll take us to about Thanksgiving. Then during that time, we will also be selecting committee members per grade band, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and then of course for each of the high school committees. Those committees will be notified in December. We will then take the materials that have been sent to us and explore those materials in the month of January, in hopes to be coming back to you in February and in March with a decision. Does that answer your question?
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other committee members wish to ask a question? Director Leonard.
I guess just one question, comment. I'm dating myself a little bit as I think about this question, to be honest with you, but in the past, when we adopted textbooks, there was times when the online materials that went with it were just supplementary. They did not go directly into the process, and it was really counterproductive for a lot of our parents. It was easier to take a Chromebook home than take a textbook home, as I think about it right now anyway.
Director Simpson, Director Leonard, members of the committee, Jenny Eckstein, Social Studies Curriculum Specialist. Director Leonard, you are absolutely right. You remember correctly, that is how things used to be. And we are exploring, as part of our qualifications, that the digital piece of the textbook also be available online for our students to be able to use at home and also in the classroom. So the digital portion of what they have is very, very important to this particular adoption. And we've learned a lot in the last year and a half. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've learned, is that we have to be able to flip the switch at any moment. So does that answer your question? Okay.
Any follow-up, Director Leonard? No? Okay. Any other comments or questions by committee members? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you, Director Simpson. So, this is really important, and I guess after this year, thinking about accessibility and also keeping current with what's happening in the world and providing culturally relevant teaching options. I know that there's a little bit of a monopoly in the textbook arena. And so can you walk us through maybe how we're going to think differently about the way we present information to our students? When I remember reading text, which I know I grew up in a different time, but the colonialism, the history, the way we present our standing in the world is a little bit entrenched in revisionist history. And so I just want to hear, one, how you're thinking about that, and two, if we're thinking differently at all, like are we going to take the 1619 project and piece it together maybe with another source that's found? I just think that this is probably a really great opportunity for us to be really innovative in the way we give instruction to kids. And so I'd like to, one, hear how you're going to do that, and then maybe have some more conversations about what that looks like.
Administration.
Chair Stevenson, Director Gokugande, members of the committee, Jenny Eckstein, Social Studies Curriculum Specialist. Director Gokugande, you are absolutely correct. There is no one silver bullet in any kind of a textbook or textbook series that you can have. And a high quality instructional materials is more than just that. It's all the pieces that go with it to create a comprehensive curriculum that works for our students, that engages them in what they need to know and be able to do in the classroom. And so when it comes to this textbook adoption, we are looking at a lot of different rubrics that are used around the country. We've been working with the state social studies consultant to really look at high quality instructional materials, but also culturally responsive materials and all the things that these books will have to have in order to meet those particular needs. And so, no, social studies is not like we did it when we were in school, and we're really trying to move it forward into the 21st century and look at things a little bit differently.
Thank you so much.
Any follow-up, Director Gokugande? Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of the board?
I move approval of the adoption or of the process, opening of the process.
Thank you, Director Gokugande. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
On Director Gokugandi's motion to approve the areas to be open for textbook study during the 21-22 school year, for text to be used in the 22-23 school year. Moving approval of the administration's recommendation. Director Carr,
Aye.
Director Gokugande,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
and Chair Simpson.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes. The motion passes.
And Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 2, a report with possible action on the MPS Montessori Strategic Plan. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will administration please present this item as we're switching
Chair,
over and
Chair
getting
Simpson and
settled?
members of the committee. Our first quarterly update for the 2021-22 school year regarding the Montessori Strategic Plan is before you. I would like to welcome Andrea Corona, one of our Montessori principals, who was joining us this evening to be a part of the presentation. At this time, I will ask Ms. Abigail Rouse to begin our presentation, and after which we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Abigail?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the board. My name is Abigail Rausch, and I am the Montessori coordinator. I'm here this evening with Andrea Corona, principal of McDowell Montessori School, to provide the quarterly update on the Montessori Strategic Plan. We want to begin this presentation by sharing how the Montessori Strategic Plan embodies the district's 5 priorities for success, especially increased academic achievement and accountability, develop our staff, and strengthen communication and collaboration. The ambitious instruction plan, Accelerating Learning, is the instructional framework for all schools and classrooms in MPS. We fulfill this expectation through utilizing the Montessori method, which is based on the philosophy that children reach their fullest potential through multi-age interactions in an inquisitive, cooperative, and encouraging atmosphere through self-directed activity and hands-on learning using unique materials. In addition, the 10 elements outlined in the district's academic standard of care are embedded in the Montessori philosophy. Tonight, we wanted to update the board of the progress of the Montessori strategic plan. The Montessori Advisory Committee has begun our monthly meetings for the school year. Our first meeting was held virtually on October 4th. Meetings are 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., one Monday a month, and everyone is welcome at all meetings. Working with the Department of Research, Assessment, and Data, we have been collaborating with the manufacturer of our grading system, Infinite Campus, to make the record-keeping gradebook system work more efficiently for Montessori teachers. We have begun working on 3 distinct tasks and have begun our grading task this year. The focus of this pilot is for Infinite Campus to more closely align with the specific grading needs of the Montessori program. This pilot is being conducted with some subject areas at each of the grade bands. Professional development was provided at each of the schools and will be continued throughout the year. Feedback will be sought from staff as we continue to refine these updates. There are no changes to the Montessori report card itself. This is just how teachers keep their records. A textbook waiver was submitted per district policy and approved for the recent district reading and science adoptions. And Montessori Summer School was held at Fernwood Montessori School, and we will highlight this on the next slide. Work that is currently occurring during the month of October. We have continued our monthly Montessori principal meetings virtually. This has allowed for support of administrators, as well as communication and collaboration among the MPS Montessori community. As mentioned earlier, the textbook adoption waiver for language and science adoptions has been approved, and the Montessori strategic plan outlines that money is utilized for textbooks for the Montessori schools would be used to replenish the corresponding Montessori materials in those subject areas. The schools are currently intentionally selecting materials needed in the areas of language and science. At MPSU, we are setting up the classroom according to the specifications of our second elementary contractor, Alverno. Both Alverno and UW River Falls are sharing the same classroom to conduct elementary Montessori certification classes. According to the American Montessori Society, or AMS, this is the first time in the world that the two main Montessori organizations, AMI, the Association Montessori International, and AMS, American Montessori Society, have shared a space to conduct certification classes. Guidelines for sharing the space have been developed. We have been working with the pre-service and licensing coordinator and human resources to develop the process and protocols for our Montessori student teachers, as they are all current employees. And collaborating with the Department of Bilingual Multicultural Education to explore opportunities for providing equitable implementation of core Tier 1 supports and appropriate interventions for English learners in the Montessori classroom. We've been learning the current identification process, which is completed during student intake. And with the Montessori administrators, we will begin to outline a process of identification of students who are not previously identified.
Chair Simpson, members of the board, Andrea Corona, principal of McDowell Montessori School. This summer, we were able to hold the Montessori Summer School at Fernwood Montessori School. Last year, we implemented Montessori curriculum and lessons for our summer learners, which was conducted virtually. And this year, we were able to utilize the curriculum in person. The lessons presented were aligned with the standards the traditional summer school was using. So we were able to present the same standards, but in a Montessori framework using Montessori materials. We had 221 Montessori students attend with 78% daily attendance average. Students from each of the 8 Montessori schools in Milwaukee Public Schools attended, and we also had some students from private Montessori schools who were City of Milwaukee residents that attended as well. One of the perplexities of Montessori Summer School is the time. not just the length of the session, but the length of each day. Montessori lessons build on one another and include follow-up experiences for students. Selecting the correct lesson that fulfills the educational standard and fits the summer school structure is imperative. The Montessori coordinator was able to provide in-person support for staff for the first 3 of 6 weeks of summer school. We have surveyed the staff for feedback on the session, and we will take that feedback to plan for future Montessori summer school sessions. Our first session of Montessori Summer School was very successful, and we look forward to building on that success in the coming years. Tonight, we also wanted to highlight our secondary certification program. This program is being conducted by the Cincinnati Montessori Secondary Teacher Education Program, which is in partnership with MPSU. This certification program has 16 adult learners attending. When completed in September of 2022, adult learners will earn a secondary Montessori credential for grades 7 through 12. Of the 16 MPS employees in training, 15 of them are currently working in their permanent position. This program began in the fall of 2020. It is a mostly virtual with some synchronous and asynchronous opportunities and 3 in-person sessions. The first of these in-person sessions was held at McDowell Montessori School, July 18th to the 31st, 2021. This session included an outdoor education component for 4 days and 3 nights at Nature's Classroom Institute, where our adult learners participated in hands-on experiences such as cooking over a fire, lesson plans, caring for animals, and internalization of philosophy so that they know how to present the outdoor Montessori education components to the children. During this in-person session, we had visitors to the program, including School Board Director Leonard, Superintendent Posley, Marla Brunau, Chief Communications and School Performance Officer, Michael Harris, Senior Director of Talent Management, Dr. Smith, Regional Superintendent of the high school region, and myself as the gracious host and principal of McDowell Montessori School. Visitors engaged in the learning process while meeting with the director of CM STEP. CM STEP is one of the Montessori certification programs currently ongoing in the district. We also have 2 elementary certification programs being held in partnership with MPSU, Alverno and UW River Falls. In total, we have 46 adult learners in Montessori certification programs. Of those 46 staff members, 29 are already in their permanent position. We will utilize the upcoming staff retention survey to determine our ongoing teacher needs at each grade band for future planning. The Montessori staff retention survey will be sent out on October 11th. Based on feedback from our current employees and certification, we are restructuring our Montessori scholarship process to be more intentional. Our current adult learners wish they had known more about Montessori before deciding to become a Montessori teacher, as well as more specification and more details about the certification process that they would go through. The updated Montessori scholarship process will begin with a mandatory information session that will be held on October 28th and an interview which will be held on November 11th. The scholarship application period will be between December 3rd and December 12th, with awardees being notified on December 17th. Information about the scholarship timeline and window is in today's Thursday update for all MPS staff.
Chair Seamson, members of the board, Abigail Rausch, Montessori coordinator. The Montessori Advisory Committee has a Montessori strategic plan timeline for the 2021-22 school year. The Montessori Advisory Committee will continue to meet virtually on November 1st, December 6th, and January 10th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. More information, including meeting links if virtual, can be found on our webpage, mpsmke.com/Montessori. In November, we are looking forward to our next in-person session for the Cincinnati Montessori Secondary Teacher Education Program. This session will be held following all current health guidelines and will be conducted November 4th through November 8th. We will be continuing to work to solidify our Montessori inventory, which we are calling the minimum standard of care for Montessori materials. We are establishing a baseline of Tier 1 material expectations in an MPS Montessori classroom. We have worked through the last year with the Montessori principals and school support teachers to develop a draft of this document. We began by gathering material suggestions from the 2 main Montessori organizations and then have built on from the list from there. We are including on the list all of the items needed in the classroom. This is not just the physical Montessori materials that are recognizable, but all of the handmade materials that correspond to those wooden materials. Identifying all of the handmade materials and ensuring that all classrooms have them will help to ensure equity of Tier 1 materials in each of our Montessori classrooms. Currently, we are gathering feedback from the Montessori staff on this draft. We will then review the feedback, adjust the documents before we adopt them into use. On December 23rd, we will be conducting an all Montessori school district-wide professional development. We are in current planning with the Montessori administrators and school support teachers about the topic and format of this professional development. This has always been an enjoyable time, and many staff are already looking forward to collaborating with their colleagues from across the district. And on the Montessori teacher retention survey is currently listed as in December. As we mentioned earlier, we have moved up the survey to October 11th to help with the intentional recruitment of Montessori teachers and utilizing the scholarship process, which we outlined in an earlier slide. We will continue to collaborate with the Department of Bilingual Multicultural Education for the implementation of English learner supports. And lastly, we will continue to define expectations for the implementation of the grades 7 and 8 curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary, is there any public comment on this item?
We have no request for public testimony on this item.
Thank you. And just Madam Secretary, so you know, you were very quiet. It was very muted. Do any committee members wish to make questions, make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
I just wanted to basically just compliment the whole process. We went to observe it this summer, and I was actually pretty impressed by the amount of time and effort and dedication of those teachers and the people that were running the program. Very well done. If I'm not mistaken, there was 13-hour days. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, I can't imagine doing 13-hour days, but I gave them a lot of credit, and I just think they deserve to hear that publicly. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Leonard. Are there any other committee members who wish to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, I'd like to pass the gavel, but Madam Secretary, since Vice Chair Garcia is not here, who would that go to? Or doesn't it matter?
You can pass the gavel to any member of the committee.
All righty, I will pass the gavel to Director Leonard, since he and I usually share a room down there at the office. My question is, I'm sorry, I'll wait to be recognized.
Go ahead, Director Simpson, please speak to this amendment. I mean,
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, just, with what Director Leonard said, I mean, we should just be very proud of this program. It's one of our, one of the desirable programs that so many of our families are looking to enroll in. I know in the past we've looked at some wait lists, and I know we always have to kind of balance the wait lists with our capacity to meet all of those needs, both at the staffing level of teachers, but also with administrators. And I was wondering, with that idea of a strategic plan, how we're doing, looking, 5 years down the road, what do we see our capacity as being? Are we looking at expanding this program? And do we feel like we have the capacity to handle that with staffing?
Administration.
Go ahead.
Chair Leonard, now I think this is, and members of the committee. Andrea Corona, principal, McDowell Montessori School. We built in the, because our goal from the Montessori Advisory Committee is to enhance and expand the program, we built in natural timelines within our strategic plan to begin looking at, whether or not the district was ready to begin talks of expansion. And in the strategic plan outline and the timelines that are there, we're scheduled to begin that in 2023 to be looking at those wait lists, that desire for enrollment, areas of the city that are interested in Montessori, so that we can begin to forecast where to place a school, if a facility is available, and then what our staffing needs would be for leadership and for teachers to go along with that. So the idea when we wrote the plan was that every 5 years, we would again engage in that process to find out, do we have the right amount of Montessori, or is there more Montessori needed?
Great.
Director Simpson. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that information. I appreciate it. And I don't know if it's possible at some point to have a representative from the advisory council attend one of these meetings just to kind of hear from their perspective. I know that you're all working together, but sometimes it's nice to hear from someone who's actually on that committee that's not an administration on the administrative team. So if that's possible or not.
Administration.
Chair Leonard and members of the committee, yes, that is possible.
Great, thank you. And I'll take the gavel back.
It's all yours.
Thank you, Director Leonard. Are there any comments
noted.
or questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Mann?
Oh, no, I was just noting the gavel pass. Thank you.
Any further discussion by the committee? Seeing none, as this was an informational item. Thank you so much for that report. And Madam Secretary, what is the next item, please?
The next item is item number 3, is a report with possible action regarding the ambitious instruction. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Administration, will you please present this item?
Yes, Chair Simpson and members of the committee, we would like to share an update on our plan titled Ambitious Instruction, Accelerated Learning. At this time, I'll ask Dr. Sappho to share an update, as she also is going to go through a demonstration as far as her documents that is being used throughout the district around the efforts in teaching and learning. So, Dr. Sappho.
Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee. Felicia Saffold, Senior Director of Curriculum and Instruction. At the last SASE meeting, we presented the academic standards for the year. Today, I will share our academic plan for the year. Ambitious Instruction, Accelerating Learning is the instructional framework for the year, and it serves as the foundation for instruction in the classroom and professional development for school staff, school leaders, and families. There are 3 key components of the plan that I want to highlight. All students is our focus. The focus is on culturally and linguistic practices to promote learning. All content areas, whereas reading, writing, and mathematics is still a major focus, we have also expanded ambitious instruction to look at all content areas. And accountability. Teaching a rigorous and relevant curriculum is our goal, supporting teachers with specific coaching strategies and targeted professional development, and monitoring our progress in ambitious instruction. Our plan is outlined in our Ambitious Instruction, Accelerated Learning ebook. We chose to put the information in this format to model Book Creator, which is one of the tools we are promoting this year as a way to stimulate reading and writing throughout the district. The other reason we chose to use an ebook is because it's on demand, it's live, and our district can access it at any time. So now I will walk you through some of the features of our ebook. You will see the table of contents is in 3 chapters. Our 3 chapters are aligned to the way we are using our professional learning this year. Our professional learning cycles are in 3 cycles. The first chapter, cycle 1, is on intentional planning for the district. And we chose to focus each chapter on one specific learning goal. So intentional planning is the focus of cycle 1. In cycle 1, connecting to students' lives is the focus, using district adopted supported materials, and using learning intentions and success criteria in every lesson. That is the focus of cycle 1. You will see here, this is our logo for Ambitious Instruction, Accelerating Learning. Ambitious Instruction, Accelerating Learning promotes the following daily experiences: consistent opportunities to work on grade level assignments, strong instruction where students do most of the thinking in the classroom, deep engagement in what they are learning, and teachers holding high expectations for students and believing that they can meet grade level standards. If you look at the big circle, that kind of outlines our equity focus, which is on culturally responsive practices, instructional technology, and the use of district adopted and supported materials. And then you will see the 3 circles on the right, which we are calling our levers this year: formative practices, explicit instruction, and engagement. On the next slide, I will show you why we think this book is a good format for us. Here we have the interactive pieces that our staff, our teachers, our leaders can all use as they dive into and find out more about ambitious instruction. And so the first area, formative practices, is really around responding to students' thinking in daily checks for understanding, getting evidence of understanding, and what are the steps to address unfinished learning. In explicit instruction, we're looking at intentional, hands-on, minds-on engagement, modeling, scaffolding, and using grade level standards based on materials. And then finally, with engagement, we're looking at 3 types of engagement: cognitive engagement, emotional engagement, and behavioral engagement, and utilizing technology tools. And so as we talk about those 3 levers, when people are looking at our ebook, they can click on the links to get more information. And so where I gave you a highlight of each area, they can go into the book and find out the definition. They can look at where we're going with formative assessment. They can look at what CABs are, how we're defining CABs, how they might set that up in their schools around CABs and learning systems. We give tips for their school, and then ultimately we talk about how this works with from a leadership lens. With formative assessment, we're really looking at moving teachers from what are my scores on the EE to more what are my goals for teaching and learning. And so as people click through the book, they can get a detailed explanation of all of those levers. As well as we have some interactive features. If you see the audio, they could click here and an audio version will talk about what the plan is, or they can click on the text version and be able to get a walkthrough of what ambitious instruction accelerated learning is. Here is a snapshot of the overall plan. Again, this one-pager highlights the focus for ambitious instruction accelerated learning. Closing the opportunity gap in reading, writing, and mathematics remains a priority work for the district. However, ambitious instruction accelerating learning includes all content areas in ensuring students acquire essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions for school, college, and career success. And then you also see the 3 areas of focus that we will work on throughout the year. On this page, it gives a little more detail. We want our teachers and our staff and our leaders to know what the expectations are for teaching and learning, as well as the expectations for support. Everything that we're doing this year is aligned to the cycle. And so again, right now we're working on cycle 1. and looking at intentional learning, using district adopted materials and leveraging technology are the focus. And so all of our professional development that we're providing really gives practice and insight and tips on how to do those things well. And so again, in cycle one, we figured if we targeted on just those things and do those things well, we could really monitor and really have a pulse on the difference that we're making with teaching and learning. And so then I want to show you on chapter one. So this is where I think is really exciting because we have made sure that all content areas, all programs have really embraced ambitious instruction, accelerating learning. And each of those content areas have created an instructional design which covers the academic standards and shows a focus on ambitious instruction, accelerating learning. And I'll show you a few of those. Here you will see how the bilingual program has incorporated the biliteracy standards and how the work that they're doing really falls in line with ambitious instruction, accelerating learning. People looking at this page, it's really turns into a one-stop shop because they can look at the unit plan, they can look at the biliteracy standards, and they can really see how the bilingual program is looking at ambitious instruction and fulfilling the needs of the biliteracy standards. And that is similar to all of the content areas. Here you'll see a focus on the career and tech standards. And again, each content area shows how that looks for ambitious instruction, accelerated learning. You'll see how each content area defines explicit instruction in their area, how they define formative practices, and what they're looking for in engagement. And so there's an example of CTE. Here's an example of how early childhood incorporates ambitious instruction, accelerating learning with the WeMo standards. And again, the ELD standards are incorporated in this particular model. And again, if you notice, all of the content areas are really highlighting what these three levers mean in their content area. No content area has been left out. And so it's been really exciting to see how we all have rallied around the three levers and really made it personal and specific to what those levers look like in different content areas. And so we can say that we have a common language throughout our district on the three levers that we are using. Staff and leaders can go to the links to get more information, more tips and resources on how the particular content areas are viewing ambitious instruction. Again, there's just to show you that we really did have a collaborative effort with all of our content areas. And the highlight is really around those three levers and what it looks like in different content areas. And then finally, we have figured out we worked closely with our research and assessment team to come up with a walkthrough tool that would really help us to gather information about how we're doing with ambitious instruction and the three levers. The walkthrough tool is not an evaluative tool, but it's a tool designed to get feedback so that we can see, is formative practices where we're having success? Is it explicit instruction? Is it engagement? Which area do we need to emphasize on more? And so we're really excited to be able to have a design that we can actually measure and monitor and talk about our progress throughout the year. And chapter 2, we're hoping to keep ambitious instruction, accelerating learning alive, because now you have to wait to see what's happening in chapter 2. And so that's kind of a way that we want to keep a focus on each cycle, and then we'll bring out the next cycle and talk about the data that we've seen and then how we can improve on that data. And this really has been a collaboration with every department in the central offices. And so we're excited about that. We have a common language, and we're excited to see that having this kind of focus, what difference it'll make with student achievement. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we only No, we do not have any public testimony on this item.
Thank
Can
you,
you hear
Madam.
me better now?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you loud and clear now.
Thank you so much.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul Gandhi.
This is really great. Thank you. I like how interactive the tool is. You kind of touched on this, but could you tell us how you're going to track progress and how we know that this plan is working?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director Gokul Gandhi. The tool that I talked about at the end is our walkthrough tool. Our walkthrough tool is designed with each of those 3 levers. And so all of the criteria that we're looking for in the classroom is centered around formative practices, explicit instruction, and engagement. And so as we do walkthrough tools officially as a district and as school leaders just do their own walkthroughs, we'll be gathering that data, which all goes into one database. And so every classroom observation that uses the walkthrough tool will be able to see how those classrooms have been rated in terms of those 3 levers. And then we'll be having times where we look at that data through our Principal Leadership Institute, through our SST Institute, and through department staffs, where we look at the data and be able to talk about where we are with those levers. And the curriculum instruction team is excited because then we know where we need additional professional development around the different levers.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, one of the other things that we're looking at on an ongoing basis is classroom-based assessment, CABs, that she just talked about in the presentation, that each grade level will have CABs. Teachers are setting their own CABs and doing those kinds of things. There's also chapter tests. That is, at the end of each one of the chapters, a unit test and those kinds of things. Also looking at reteaching and retesting, and then also following and in sync with the scope and sequence of each content area. Each one of those content areas have a scope and sequence of where a child should be, what a child should know and be able to do. And so those kinds of things will be things that will be looked at as far as moving forward when we're talking about holding, making sure that we're accountable for results. And that is also looking at working with Dr. Mel and her team on data dives to look at the data on an ongoing basis of what's happening with the data and looking at trends and places where we need to reteach, retool, and go back and help students.
Thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi, any follow-up?
Yeah, just one follow-up. I think it would be, I'm not sure what cadence of data collection and reflection you'll be doing, but it would be great to hear high-level observations or trends, or maybe what isn't working and what is working and how you pivoted. So I'm not sure when that would happen, or Dr. Mann, how we would request that as a report, but it would just be, I think, helpful to understand that.
Yeah, Dr. Mann?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Director Gokul Gandhi, that information can be requested if the administration were to give us a timeline on when they could have a good amount of data to be shared with the board. We can definitely request that information. We can put it on a schedule like the policy docket in order to be able to continually be updated.
Director Gokul Gandhi, would that be acceptable?
Yeah, Chair Simpson, I would I would pose to my colleagues, is that something that is helpful? I feel like ambitious instruction should be at the core of what the service we provide. And so I think this is incredibly important, but I'd also be curious to hear from my fellow committee members if this is something of interest.
Thank you. I'm seeing Director Leonard give a little nod. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's important information to come back to this committee. I know that those kind of summaries of what those walkthroughs look like are something that we can access. So if that's possible then to come back to this committee, that would be great. Once we have, the data, so enough data to talk about. Administration, any comment on that?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee would be more than happy to come back to the board to bring that data back to you. We just request that it's, January, February, because we want to have data to be able to show. We will also have our STAR assessment data. There's just a number of data points that we will have to be able to show and spread out that way. But also one of the cadence that we do use is plan, do, study, and act. So, this has been planned out. It's in a doing process now. We're going to take some time to study what has happened, and then we're going to act on what our findings are. So, and that's the whole thing. And it's whole throughout the year. It's built that way. We're working with school leaders, on our principals institute. We just had that on yesterday. There's an institute for assistant principals and special ed supervisors. There's an institute as well for SSTs, as well as learning teams. And then we also roll all of this up in the learning management system where individuals can go out and view this at any time, but it's the same professional development given to all 4 or 5 of those groups that'll be taken back. And that's what school teams are looking at with that checklist when they go in and working through that. And we want to get to a point where individual schools are doing their own checklists. They are walking and looking in classrooms and looking at what needs to happen. And like we said, it's not from an evaluative tool or an evaluative lens. It's how we get better at our craft and what we are doing and working together around what that looks like and what we're looking for, what we expect for children to know and be able to do at each one of our grade levels.
Thank you, administration. Are there any other committee members who would like to ask a question or make comments? I see none. I'd like to pass the gavel. Director Leonard, would you mind?
Director Simpson, please speak to the item.
Gavel pass noted.
Thank you. In mentioning, looking at CABS and STAR data, I think that that's important, but I'm sure we've all seen sort of those charts that show where a student, for example, who's in 2nd grade, what was the last school year that they attended that was, quote unquote, normal. So we know that our students who are coming to us, especially this year, have had just a lot of interruption in learning. They've had to be very flexible in how they're learning over the last couple of school years. So I would just, caution that as we're looking at this data, that we're looking at all of that through that lens of understanding. And I was just wondering, sort of like, what's the messaging around that to teachers, to principals, to SSTs? Where is that in the plan in terms of, addressing that type of need to create just a safe, loving, caring environment so that students are coming in feeling welcomed and that they're not being, we talk about that grade level expectation, although it's important, I wouldn't want a student to sit there and feel like, oh my gosh, I don't get this. And, they're because maybe of some gaps that have occurred in the last year and a half. So just wondering what some of the systems are in place that we have to address that.
Administration.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Felicia Saffold. Those are really important points. And I think that's one of the things that I think we're most proud of with our plan this year is that we're looking at the whole child and realizing that unfinished learning has happened, but we're also looking at what it means to engage students where they are. And so a big piece of the plan is about engagement and really utilizing a lot of the tools that we found that were very helpful during the pandemic that we're bringing into the classroom space. And so really having students have a comfortable way to engage in the classroom by still utilizing some of those things like peer deck, where they can show what they're understanding in a safer way without raising their hands and being called out on. So we're utilizing some of those things, as well as in the summer, we had spent quite a bit of time with Goldie Muhammad and really looking about the genius and brilliance and joy in classrooms. And so our principal institute that we had just yesterday had a major focus on those things. So while we're looking at academic achievement and in the classroom, we're also looking for the genius and the joy in classrooms. And we spent a good bulk of the time yesterday in our principal institute just talking about what does joy look like in the classroom. And so we're really looking at the whole child, that social emotional development, and how we can take the students where they are before we think about all of the grade level standards, but really providing an environment to make them comfortable to engage into the learning again.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee as well. One of the things that we're looking at is that, social emotional learning. We made that a part of the day when we came back in April, and we continued that this year because we know that our students need to be engaged and working and doing those kinds of things. Another thing that we looked at is this whole thing around the tutoring and those kinds of things. To how do we lift our students up in that area as well. And then interventions. We have a number of different interventions that we're working with young people at all different levels. But we know that number one, we want to expose our young people to the content, grade level content. However, but have that support, those safety net, the scaffolding that goes on to make sure that our children are ready to reach those goals. And we talked about the joy and love and learning. And we want to tap into that potential for all of our young people in the classroom on a daily basis. And we know that there's unfinished learning, and we are constantly looking at how do we tap into unfinished learning. And there's a number of modes of learning and avenues of learning, and we want to tap into all of those. So with that opportunity, with art, music, physical education, and library media specialists, how do we tap into the brilliance of each one of our young people? And that's what this ambitious instruction, accelerated learning is goal is to make sure that happens and lays it out for our staff and all stakeholders. And also what we can do with this, with the support when we have the Boys and Girls Club or other outside groups that are working along with us, they can take this and plug it right in and play. So this is plug and play for outside agencies. Parents at home can go and look at what's expected, what we need to do, and how we need to move forward. So we're building those safety nets around young people so that they can be successful.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And Director Leonard, I'll take the gavel back.
Okay.
Thank you. And
So noted.
And Director Leonard.
Thank you. I just, as I was listening to Ms. Saffold and just sort of immersing myself in missing this about 2 years now, I thought it would be it'd be great if some of us board members, if we chose to actually view this in classrooms, or even at least see the presentation on joy in the classroom. I would love to get a idea of what that's about. I've heard it mentioned several times now. So if there's any opportunity where that is taking place, I would love to be attending that. I guess I'll say that.
Administration, are those opportunities available for board members?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, one of the things I will just check to make sure, because I think we were able to record Dr. Golden Muhammad. And if not, we were able to record the portion the interactive piece that we had. But also, yes, we are more than welcome to let's get out to some classrooms and see this in practice and make it happen. So we stand ready to do just that.
Any follow-up to that, Director Leonard? All right, thank you. Yeah, if there's any way that there is a recorded portion or version of that that could be sent to board members, I'm sure many of us would appreciate that. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, as this was an informational item, thank you so much for that update. And Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 4, which is a report with possible action regarding the Black Lives Matter Week campaign and planning for the 21-22 school year. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Administration, will you please present this item?
Yes, Chair Simpson and members of the committee, we are pleased to bring forward our first report of the 2021-22 school year on planning efforts related to Black Lives Matter Week campaign and planning for activities, curriculum, and events throughout the current school year. I would first like to thank the many individuals on the planning committee that will be carrying out this important work this school year that will result in meaningful and engaging district-wide programming and events during Black Lives Matter Week, as well as the many school-based events and programmings during Black History Month and beyond. At this time, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Dinkins, as well as Felice Bill, who's going to walk us through what we have tonight, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Bill?
Good evening, Director Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Felice Bill, Instructional Leadership Director for Central Region. I am truly happy to report that the Black Lives Matter initiative continues to develop and move forward towards the resolution goals and expectations. The subcommittees will continue to meet regularly to plan and develop curriculum connections and activities for staff and students to further this work. Today's presentation will provide you with the 2021-22 school year goals for Black Lives Matter. The development of the Black Lives Matter initiative is a critical component to the 5 priorities of success. The work of the core committee is aligned to improving district school culture, developing our staff, strengthening communication and collaboration, and increasing academic achievement and accountability. We have worked to connect with members of the core committees for this year's Black Lives Matter initiative. We're excited that we have been able to retain many of our participants who have previously engaged in this work. The Curriculum Professional Development Chair will be Dr. Letitia Reed. The Week of Action Chair will be Dr. Ebony Davis. And the Monthly School Projects Chair is Ms. Ingrid Henry Walker. This is not the final list, as we are continuing to add students and those who express interest to become participants. The Curriculum and Professional Development Committee is comprised of members across the following departments: Curriculum and Instruction, Professional Development and Supports, Equity, Restorative Practices, the Black and Latino Male Achievement Department, and Students. This year's goals, we plan to share the Racial Equity Readiness Questionnaire with all staff by the end of the first semester. We're creating and developing learning modules. We're working in alignment with the monthly activities to align all of the activities with the state standards and inform schools of the provided information. We also want to make sure that we are developing professional development modules for sensitive topics for Black Lives Matter. For example, how to dialogue with students without bias, language to avoid, courageous conversations about race, and many others. We hosted a group of NPS leaders before the close of last year with community and university partners to provide feedback on the Readiness Questionnaire. The committee made revisions based on the partners' feedback. Our goal this school year is to work in alignment with the Monthly Activities Committee to add state standards again and to ensure that all activities are aligned to all of the curriculum aspects. On slide 5, you will see this is an example of one of the questions from the Readiness Questionnaire, and this is for your viewing. All participants will have questions such as, I am confident in my ability to notice differences. They must select from one of the 5 responses in order for their questions to be calculated. The purpose of this questionnaire is to provide our staff an opportunity to determine an entry point for their personal capacity building and ways to provide appropriate resources to engage students in productive learning as well. The committee also worked in collaboration with the district discipline manager to connect the questionnaire to the work around courageous conversations about race.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, my name is Tony Dinkins, Regional Superintendent for the East Region. The Monthly Activities Committee has several goals that we are working on accomplishing this school year. Our first goal is to establish monthly activities for schools to implement during instruction. Our official monthly themes will begin in November with a focus on restorative justice. In December, the theme will be International People with Disabilities Day with a focus on globalism and collective values. October 14th will be a day of action where students are asked or participants are asked to wear their Black Lives Matter t-shirts in honor of George Floyd. Our plan is to ensure school communities receive at least 3 months of activities in advance to enhance their academic planning and alignment. We also want to plan and host an end of the year student showcase to highlight the students and in-class projects that are submitted during this year's purpose. The pictures on the slides throughout this presentation were actual submissions from students who participated last school year, and we are proud of their work. Finally, our goal is to create a Black Lives Matter flyer for families that will share information regarding the principles of Black Lives Matter and what students will learn throughout the school year. In addition to creating and planning this year's Week of Action, the Week of Action goals include create a theme for the week and implement a Black Lives Matter Action Day aligned to the theme for each month. This work will begin starting in January and will go to the end of the year in May. The other goal outlined is to develop a list of learning excursions that school communities can access to enhance their understanding of cultural relevance and the Black Lives Matter principles. This concludes our presentation for the goals outlined this year, and we are now prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public who wish to make comment tonight?
Madam Chair, there's no request for public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing none. Well, thank you so much for that report. And there we go, Director Leonard.
Just a request to get the results of the Racial Equity Readiness Questionnaire. If that's possible, I would be very curious to see how that comes out.
Administration.
Go ahead. Director Simpson and members of the committee, we are in process of ensuring that the readiness questionnaire is sent out to all staff before the closure of the first semester. And at that point, we will receive the results and share that with you.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be very interesting to see that. Director Gokul Gandhi.
I'm sure you will, but please do send an invite to the end of the year showcase. That's definitely something I would like to attend.
Administration.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, we will make sure no one missed the showcase.
Thank you so much. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll see none. Thank you again. And this is always, this has really grown and developed throughout this process of looking at kind of, expanding that week of Black Lives Matter from a week to a whole school year. So thank you so much. It's always exciting to see the work that's done. That was an informational item only. So Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 5, a report with possible action regarding the Equity Work Group. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Administration, will you please present this item?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, we are prepared to provide our first update on our equity work group. And we have Dr. Mail with us and Mr. Boswell. Dr. Mail.
Very good. Good evening, Director Simpson, members of the committee. Matthew Boswell and I are excited to share we've had an initial meeting for this equity work group. We, as you have read in your item, it was an initial meeting, and we identified some strengths, areas of improvement that we looked at, as well as some discussion items for future use. Tonight in our Thursday update, we are expanding the group and looking for more participants, including teachers and principals and others, parents, and so that we can expand to meet all of the work groups. We currently also ask if anyone is listening and is interested in being part of this work group, that they reach out to Mr. Boswell or myself so that we can include them in the group. We have planned currently virtual meetings. We will begin October 27th, have one November 11th, one December 1st. We're going to fashion this similar to how we did have been doing our assessment work group. so that people can attend virtually, but if they're not able to attend a session, then we will record it and then they can look at it at their leisure. There will be feedback sessions after each meeting, and we will gather those, and members of the research team will be helping us to look at the data, to look for themes and issues. We're going to begin our deeper work looking at the history of the process, as well as reviewing profiles of all of our high schools, reviewing our select criteria data currently and over the last several years. Then we will also, in our second meeting, review feedback that we received and look at other districts, both locally and through the Council of Great City Schools, to see how other schools handled these types of processes. Then in our third meeting, we'll again review feedback, and then we're going to go about identifying inequities and making recommendations to the Board of Education. And I think Mr. Boswell and I are excited for the learning and to the process to learn from a variety of people so that we can improve and make this process more equitable for all of our children. At this point, we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much for that overview. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair. We do have Ms. Kelly Pfeiffer on the platform to speak on this item.
And if it's okay with committee members, can we go to, yep, I get the nod. Then let's go to public comment.
Thank you. Kelly Pfeiffer, please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Hello, my name is Kelly Pfeiffer, Kelly, Pfeiffer, Piffer.
Thank you.
Hopefully my connection will stay stable. Good evening. I want to thank President Peterson for taking the initiative to develop a work group to collaborate on the high school admissions process. This has been a sore spot for me as both an educator and a parent. The enrollment process can and must be more equitable and efficient for the students and families we serve. I am delighted to be here representing the staff of Audubon High School. I'm here with two requests. The first is that Audubon High School has a seat in this equity work group, which it sounds like we do, we can have. I like to call Audubon High School the best little school you have never heard of. And I say that with a lot of pride, but I also say that with a tinge of sadness because I've talked to a number of parents and students who say, I wish I would have known about your school when choosing a high school. It might have been a good fit for my kid. Part of that just comes with being a small school, but that is not the whole picture. Audubon High School opened in the fall of '08 as an instrumentality charter school. A lot of the original vision and mission of the school remain intact today, which is a testament to our school's founding school teachers and students. Audubon High School found there was a very high demand for our program, which led us to being part of the cadre of early enrollment schools. While other early admission schools required entrance exams, letters of recommendation, and high attendance records, Audubon High School only had one, a technology portfolio. In essence, we wanted students who want us. It may seem small, but there is a big difference between when a student chooses a school as opposed to having a school chosen for them. Taking the time to put together the portfolio gave our kids a kind of ownership over the kind of high school experience they wanted to have. There's also a sense of school pride that comes with being accepted to a school. The district came to us in the fall of 2014 and said that the early admissions process was inequitable. All schools would be early admission schools, the enrollment process would be centralized, and we could no longer ask.
Madam Chair, Ms. Pfeiffer was the only individual registered to speak on this item.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Let me just, not seeing everybody. There we go. I see, yep, Director Leonard.
Anyone that's been a teacher at MPS or a parent and a parent teacher knows that this is a big issue. And I'm glad we have the work group. I think that's well worth the effort. I actually wish I could have heard the end of Ms. Pfeiffer's comments. So I don't even know where to start with this, but I do have some concerns. And they come from the fact that I think that we are not advertising all of our schools as well as we could. So I guess it's more of a comment. I think we need to work with that. I have been working with Audubon because that's one of my schools. But I guess my question would be, I'm looking at your areas for improvement. And I'm not sure, does anybody have a plan from administration on how there are ways that we might overcome some of these? I mean, the families that have an all or nothing approach is a very common nationwide kind of response. If they can't get in, oh, forget it. You know, and often when it comes to MPS high schools, they then leave MPS. And we have to do something about that, obviously. But any thoughts on this at all from the administration would be greatly appreciated.
Administration.
Director Simpson, Director Leonard, members of the committee, thank you very much. As we look at, that's the purpose of this work group, is to identify concerns and issues and to seek the ideas from our families, our staff, our administrators, et cetera. So that would actually be the whole purpose of this work group, is to identify these areas of concern. One of the things we're also going to do is actually pull the data to look at the number of students apply who gets their first choice. If they don't get their first choice, where do they go? Do they go to another MPS school or do they go outside of the district? So what we need and we're going to do in this work group is really dig down underneath the data to find out what is the actual data surrounding all of these different components.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, another thing that we're looking at is that how do we expand seats for highly sought after programs? And we just talked a little bit about that early on with the Montessori program and the strategic plan with the Montessori program, when we're going to build another campus, those kinds of things that we're looking at. So we're looking at how we can do expansions, how we can open up more seats to be able to attract and retain students to stay. And then also looking at what we need to do as a district, looking at the issues that we have around moving forward and those kinds of things. When you talk about how come some schools don't get so many students in the school or whatever the situation may be. If you take a 6-12 concept, and a 6-12 concept, you're growing your own students as you go. So therefore, you may not have as many students that's coming from the outside in, because if you are at Audubon, or if you at a Milwaukee School of Languages, or WCLL, or an Obama, you're working and those same students are staying with you. That means a lot of times the outside number of students that's coming into those programs at that time is much smaller. So looking at some of those kinds of options. And then two other things that we have done is, ever since I've been here, we started a enrollment fair for all 8th graders. We take all of our 8th graders over to Green Tree Preparatory to let every high school that's in the district be there, so that they will have an opportunity to talk with students from that high school, staff from that high school. And we even had a number of schools like Bayview brought a car over to show off to the young people, but looking at that and making sure that they, had a scavenger hunt to learn about every single school that we have in this district and the options that we have in this district. And then followed up by an enrollment fair where they can sign up for that particular school with their parents. And so working with them to make sure, starting early on with the ACP, looking at this whole thing around what your interest levels are, what you want to do, where you want to go, and then start to work with young people to get them to the acceptable high school of their choice. So hopefully with that, that would eliminate a number of individuals not going to places that, they don't want to go. So so we're trying to stay within their level of interest.
Thank you, administration. Director Leonard, do you have a follow-up question?
I do, and thank you for that. It's good to hear all that in one bubble, I guess you could say, because that's something I've been sort of trying to understand better and wrestle with, and I know it's something that every board director is going to have to deal with pretty seriously. One other question: how many parents how many parents do you have working on your committee? Out of curiosity.
Administration.
Director Seamson, Director Leonard, we are in the process of reaching out. So I'm hoping that parents that are listening this evening will contact us. We're also hoping that schools, we have parents that have been through the process that have children that either did or didn't get selected, and we're inviting them. So if you have, or if someone comes to you and says they're interested, just let Mr. Boswell or myself know, and we'll be certain that an invitation is sent to them.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Thank you so much for that report. I know we all look forward to hearing the work that's yet to come. It is very important for our district, and I'm grateful that we're doing it. So thank you so much, everybody. And with that, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 6, which is a report with possible action regarding the MPS MKE Early Childhood 1825 initiative. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Will administration please present this item?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, our presentation on the Milwaukee Public Schools MKE, our Early Childhood Initiative, will include the initiative focuses and goals and completed work and our current work, as well as our next steps. At this time, I will ask Joanne Williams to begin the presentation, and after which we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Joanne.
Thank you, Dr. Polsey. Good evening, Chair Simpson and other members of the committee. My name is Joanne Williams, and I am the Early Childhood Learning Manager for Milwaukee Public Schools. Tonight, I'm also joined by Dia Wright, Director of the Office of Early Childhood Initiatives for the City of Milwaukee, whom you will hear speak later in the presentation. This evening, I will share with you an update of the work that has been ongoing for the MPS MKE Early Childhood 1825 initiative. The MPS MKE Early Childhood 1825 initiative supports district priorities by focusing on work to increase academic achievement, by targeting school readiness, improve school culture with young learners, secure in social and emotional development, develop staff on high quality practices, and strengthen communication and collaboration with the community through partnerships that aim to connect all within the city of Milwaukee. This slide reflects the demographic data reflective of the early child population of Milwaukee Public Schools for the 21-22 school year. Pertaining to specifically to K3 to K5 students, it encompasses 113 schools. Within those schools, the demographics is 9,964 students. We have 3.6% of our students are English language learners, 15.0% students with disabilities, and 65.8% of economically disadvantaged. The mission of this collaborative initiative is to improve the learning experiences for children ages birth through 5 years in the city of Milwaukee. The overarching goal is to ensure all stakeholders have a role in early care and education, have the understanding, the skill set, the capacity, and resources needed to provide high quality instruction and support to all children and families participating in early childhood education programs. Thus, the 5 elements for high quality early childhood education and programming serve as the priorities and focus for the overall implementation of the MPS MKE 1825 initiative. This partnership group works collaboratively on supporting the community by providing early childhood staff development, supporting family engagement and school transition, training on high quality, impactful instruction, focusing on social and emotional learning, and assisting with equitable resources within every early learning setting. During the period of July to September 2021, the MPS MKE 1825 initiative completed tasks that addressed the work of the initiative in a multitude of ways. For example, we had our Soli series that happened this past June 30th at 2 p.m. The Supporting Oral Language and Early Years series held its first event. This was an online event for families, educators, and community members to gain information, tips, and resources on oral language development. There were 51 participants, along with 8 vendors. The home instruction of parents of preschool youngsters, HIPPY, a program where parents learn how to directly engage in their child's development of literacy, motor, cognitive, and communication and social emotional skills through a 30-week curriculum that is delivered in the home by committed and caring HIPPY partners. Clinical Translation Science Institute of Southwest Milwaukee, Milwaukee Medical College, CTSI, that offers the Child Advancement Network CAN, that has partnerships with focus on advocacy and collaborations aimed at advancing the well-being of children across domains of health. Milwaukee PBS, that provides educational television programming and online resources. The Office of Early Child Initiatives, OECI, whose goal is to engage all of the people within the city of Milwaukee in building an environment that promotes early childhood development. Head Start, Sky Academy School of Arts and Education, MPS Student Services, and the United Provider Association, an organization whose principal objective is to provide support to family childcare providers that attended and participated in this initial kickoff event. As such, there were 178 video chats between participants and vendors, in addition to the provision of 2 keynote sessions on supporting oral language development. At this time, I will pass it over to Ms. Dia Wright, the Director of the Office of Early Child Initiatives for the City of Milwaukee, who will share her experience about our most recent event and longstanding partnership with our initiative. Dia?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Joandy. Good evening, Chair Simpson and other members of the committee. My name is Dia Wright, Director of the City of Milwaukee Office of Early Childhood Initiatives, or OECI. OECI works collaboratively to ensure children prenatally to age 3 have access to literacy and language-rich environments in their home, childcare, and community. We know that early talk helps build babies' brains. One effort of OECI is the LENA START program. LENA stands for Language Environment Analysis. The 10-week program targets parents with children ages 0 to 33 months and encourages early talk to help shape the child's brain during the years when the brain is developing the fastest, and it measures talk in the home environment. I'm happy for the few minutes to share an outcome from the collaboration between my office and the 1825 initiative, which hosted Soli. During Soli, I had several people visit the OECI booth, but only had one family with a child eligible for LENA START. The parent enrolled in the program after watching a short presentation, which is typical after a parent hears about LENA START, and affirms for me that parents want and sometimes need the resources and information on how to be the best first teacher for their child. The parent had a 7-year-old, or has a 7-year-old rather, that attends an MPS school, and also as a child just over 2 years old at that time. It was this child, of course, that enrolled. I guess one of the surprising things I'd like to mention is that by week 3 of the program, the parent shared with me that it was her relationship with her daughter that was growing unexpectedly because of the intentional talk she was making toward and with her 2-year-old. This had spilled over to the relationship with her 7-year-old. This parent, week after week, gave testimonies on the progress that her children were making. Halfway through the program, of course, she shared that her 2-year-old was attempting to talk more, and each week she reported the success she felt her child was making by participating in LENA START and was referring her friends. I will say that 3/4 of the way into the program, the parent did share that the 2-year-old had had some health concerns. And this is also typical once relationships are building amongst the facilitator and a parent, that other things will come out. The parent, without going into detail, of course, about those issues, was connected to the appropriate resources. And this is something also that happens when parents participate in LENA. Of course, the family did complete Lena Start, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Dr. Saffold and her team, specifically Joandy and Chrissy, for leading the 1825 efforts and really helping connect families with children that are younger, like toddlers, to citywide resources, such as Lena Start. I appreciate you all listening tonight, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Overall, this initiative was a great jumpstart to a series dedicated to furthering learning on ways to support oral language, which is the core of literacy instruction because it lays the foundation for the reading and writing skills that is strongly predictive of future academic success. As we look at professional development, during the month of August, early childhood educators were offered professional development focused on high quality practices. New educators, approximately 20, were offered a separate track of professional development addressing early childhood content aligned to the ambitious instruction plan. This focus was further developed for early childhood educators in the area of math by recognizing that early counting is an important entry point into mathematics learning for young children. A counting is more than 1, 2, 3 session was offered to deepen teachers' understanding of early counting and advance their understanding of counting and quantity. It was widely attended by approximately 375 educators. Our Bridges to School. The Bridges to School of Milwaukee is a community-based partnership that aims to connect families, childcare providers, and schools in the Milwaukee to increase the number of children attending, thriving, and succeeding in Milwaukee schools. It will do so by collaborating with the school administration, community school coordinator, and parent coordinator to develop events and activities to help connect families, childcare providers, and the school. Additionally, the Bridges to School is aimed to engage K-4 and K-5 teachers to understand what is going well in terms of their current connections to early childhood education and what kinds of things they would like to see developed further to bridge the early childhood education to kindergarten gap. The Bridges to School project will have a coordinator that is in the process of being hired within this month, who will work collaboratively with community school staff as well as other community partners to build bridges and develop shared plans, activities, and events that help support families with children aged 0 to 5. In shared resources, an ongoing effort to educate, develop skills, and promote moving in new educational directions. The community was provided with family engagement resources and community information. This effort aims to improve outcomes for both families, MPS, and the Milwaukee community by sharing services and activities with MPS parent coordinators and via the MPS Early Childhood website. Within instruction, development appropriate practice is the foundation on which quality early learning is built. As such, the National Association for Education of Young Children, DAP position statement has been a guidepost for the field of early childhood since it was first released. The NACE Learning Community is one-of-a-kind virtual event in June that featured the leading voices in the early childhood field. This event was an opportunity for everyone involved with early education to explore the rationale and consequences to work from the recent revisions to the DAP position statement and the 4th edition of Developing Appropriate Practice in Early Childhood Programs. MPS representation at the DAP Symposium allowed for direct learning from the authors on the why behind the changes that appear in the new statement. This learning will transfer into the professional development opportunities and translate to higher quality early learning practices. These practices are further supported by the key elements of the ambitious instruction plan. The focus is on engagement, explicit instruction, and formative practices. This plan is tied to the Milwaukee Public Schools District 5 Priorities for Success. There's ongoing support of increasing academic achievement and accountability. As such, Cycle 1 of the Ambitious Instruction Plan focuses on intentional planning for learning. To support this district-wide effort, early childhood instructional design information was highlighted within the Ambitious Instruction Plan Accelerated Learning ebook. In our social and emotional learning and cultural linguistic needs, the Head Start program offered in August to Head Start teachers and paraprofessionals a social and emotional workshop. This workshop, titled Conscious Responses Given by Children's Hospital, the Prevention and Management of Unsafe Behaviors in the Classroom by Building Relationships and Setting Classroom Procedures. The aim of this workshop was to help participants build relationships and set classroom procedures that prevent unsafe behaviors and manage unsafe behaviors when they do occur. 51 educators attended this session. In a district-wide professional development learning opportunity, early childhood teachers were required to attend a 2-hour social and emotional learning and mental health session. This session was offered for Early Start and Traditional Start schools. This training was held during the opening week of professional development and was done via a live Zoom webinar at schools. The content of this session introduced participants to the continuum of mental health, what to look for, ideas for checking in with students, and resources to universally promote mental wellness of young people. Additionally, this session was built on the information presented to school leaders during a 1-hour session provided at the Leadership Institute in July. As such, the MPS-MKE Early Child Initiative will continue the work of the initiative in the following ways. With our Soli series, the work will continue on securing diverse selection of keynote speakers for the Soli series sessions. These sessions will continue on building background information and providing language by encouraging simple but deep conversations between a child and adult, either parent or educator. Within our Bridges to School, a phase 1 of the pilot of the Bridges to School project continues. Partners will continue to work together to build relationships and make connections across systems and networks that support early learning. As such, the selection of the 3 participating community schools will be made in addition to the hiring of the Bridges to School coordinator. MPS will continue to support the Bridges to School coordinator in making direct connections with MPS supports. In professional development, Early Child will continue to offer sessions and courses that is not only applicable to school, but to community as well, with a focus on equity, ambitious instruction, and in developing appropriate practices. Young learners will be assured that differentiated goals and accelerated experiences are suited to their learning and developmental and are challenging enough to promote their progress and interest. Our positive parent training, this initiative will continue to support Children's of Wisconsin Positive Parenting Program. The Triple P will teach families with children 0 to 12 years about behavior management and building relationships. The event sessions begin September 7th and will end on November 16th. The important work must continue in order to have an impact on young learners and to ultimately ensure improved school readiness. Thus, the MPS-MKE EC 1825 initiative plans to work on the following. Continue collaborating with partners on the work of the Bridges to School project and support the coordinators to begin outreach and subsequent activities and events to families and early child education providers within the 3 geographic areas and surrounding the 3 participating community schools. Additionally, the community will continue to benefit from the ongoing Soli series sessions that will be offered throughout the school year and offer through the summer. The goal is to offer no more than 4 sessions from now until July of 2022. We will support the soft rollout and training of the early learning screener for GANs. The screener will assist teachers in verifying what students know and support them as they plan for learning opportunities aligned to student need. And also the work will continue on the goal of ensuring high quality by providing specific early learning professional development that accelerates student learning. We will complete the rollout of the Ready 4K and evidence-based family engagement curriculum delivered via text messages will be underway. Each week, parents and caregivers will receive fun facts and easy tips on how to promote their children's development by building on existing family routines. As such, community resources, information will continue to be shared so MPS families will be able to take advantage of the community learning opportunities that they may need and not be aware of. And finally, the support of the Triple P Parenting Program will continue. Continued support on participation will be done. If data indicates a need to provide another session, the initiative will work to set up another opportunity available to the community. The MPS-MKE Early Child 1825 initiative continues to gain positive traction and works to refine the blueprint in our community for our youngest learners, whom are our future leaders. At this time, I'll be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that report. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who would like to make comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Thank you so much. And do we have committee members who would like to make a comment or ask questions? Seeing none, I would like to pass the gavel to Director Leonard.
So noted.
Please go forward, Director Simpson. This is your wheelhouse.
Thank you so much, Director Leonard. First of all, I would just like to say that, thank you for doing this important work. Our city is, really needs to have a very comprehensive group of people who are working on providing resources and information and education to our early childhood kiddos, and it's really nice to see that some of these collaborations being shared at this meeting. So Just thank you for that. It's critically important in our community. I did have a question regarding assessments. So I had a few teachers reach out to me regarding assessments for early childhood coming in October. And first of all, just wondering when that training would occur, when that professional development will happen, and how were those assessments selected because they're new?
Administration.
Joanne Williams, Early Child Learning Manager for the district, Chair Simpson, and members of the board. At this time, we are working with our assessment department to plan the professional development that will occur in these coming weeks so that we roll it out and give teachers and staff in the schools what they need to be able to assess kiddos, students.
That's okay. I say kiddos too. I get it. Okay, so that's yet to come. And then how was this assessment selected? Was there something in particular that we were looking for? Did it meet, needs that we weren't seeing in previous assessments that we were doing?
Joanne Williams, Early Child Learning Manager, Chair Simpson, and members of the board. The way this assessment was chosen, it went through the RFP process. And there was a group of folks, teachers, along with Head Start staff, along with people from the schools that met and looked at the assessments to minimize the amount of testing that was done to our little ones. And so trying to find a screener that will look at foundational skills and look at the needs early on and to minimize all of the testing that would go on throughout the school year.
Thank you. Yeah, minimizing testing for our littlest kids is truly important. Yeah, thank you. Those are really all the questions that I had to ask. So I will take the gavel back. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, thank you very much for that update and the important work that's being done on behalf of our early childhood students. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 7, which is a report with possible action regarding the 53206 initiative. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will administration please present this item?
Yes, Chair Simpson and members of the committee, this evening we're prepared to share an update on the work associated with the 53206 initiative. At this time, I will ask Mr. Maurice Turner to begin the presentation, and afterwards we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the Student Achievement School Improvement Committee. My name is Maurice E. Turner, Instructional Leadership Director for the High School Region. It is our pleasure this evening to provide the committee with an update on the 53206 Promise Partnership schoolwork. I am joined this evening by Dr. Carletta Nolan, Regional Superintendent for the Central Region, and Ms. Janelle Hawkins, Senior Director of the Citywide Region. Slide. The 53206 Promise Partnership Schools work is in alignment with the district's 5 priorities for success: increasing academic achievement and accountability, improving district and school culture, developing our staff, ensuring fiscal and responsibility and transparency, and lastly, strengthening communication and collaboration. Next slide. Slide 3. In this slide, it has the 53206, Promise Partnership Schools vision. In our vision, we believe and envision the 53206 as a neighborhood of promise that is a destination for families. We also believe that it is a place where students, families, and educators are beneficiaries of the coordinated and collective impact. Lastly, we also recognize that we cannot do this work alone and that it will take the joint efforts of all stakeholders if we are going to change the narrative for this community and get the results that we all want. Next slide. Here are the demographics for all the 53206 Promise Partnership schools. There are 8 schools, Those schools are Our Avenue, Benjamin Franklin, Green Bay, the Green Bay Success Center, Gwen T. Jackson, Hopkins Lloyd Community School, Keith Avenue School, La Follette School, Andrew S. Douglas Middle School, and lastly, North Division High School. On September 20th, where this data was pulled from the data warehouse in our informational system, there were 1,896 students. Today, as of today, we're at approximately 1,920 students. We have 0.2% English language learners. 26.1% of our students receive specialized services, and 86.4% of our students are economically disadvantaged. Next slide. Here are the 53206 focus pillars. These are the pillars that the work rests on. First, we have alignment. We want to make sure that there's alignment in academics, in academic pathways, as well as strong engagement. The goal here is to ensure that all of our Promise Partnership schools provide access to safe, nurturing, supportive, and culturally responsive environments conducive to learning and healthy development. The work in this work group includes all students have equitable access to high quality instruction and instructional materials. Students be exposed to project-based learning with an emphasis in STEM education, and project lead the way. This, once again, is exposure in all grade bands. That we engage all staff in the utilization of culturally responsive teaching standards to guide instructional and engagement strategies. And lastly, that we leverage families and community partners to accomplish goals and bolster stable, engaged supports spanning children's homes, their schools, and the community. The next pillar is filling the gaps, equitable access and opportunities. The goal here is to provide access and opportunity to comprehensive services for students and families targeting psychosocial well-being and academic achievement performance. I would like to highlight the psychosocial well-being work that trauma support specialists and mobile crisis teams have engaged in during the opening weeks of the 2021-2022 school year. These teams have been supporting our schools in very critical areas. These teams have been assisting schools in providing a safe and welcoming environment with social emotional learning and restorative practices. These teams have supported students in the reacclimation to the school setting after being removed from school and their school peers for approximately 18 months. Unfortunately, some of our schools have experienced some significant traumatic events at the beginning of the school year. These events have left students and staff with a lot of questions and in need of assistance in navigating and working through the grieving process. These teams have also provided families in our schools with resources and access to resources to support them through these challenging times. Mobile crisis teams, which are housed in both Our Avenue and North Division, have filled in the gaps that schools are currently experiencing due to a shortage of mental health staff in these buildings, due to vacancies in psych or social worker positions. Lastly, we have taken an all hands on deck approach in all of our 53206 schools in locating students. Mobile crisis teams have added additional support in locating students and families and removing barriers so that students can get into our school buildings. They have also been instrumental in clearing no-show lists in our Promise Partnership schools. The next pillar is strengthening outcomes, college and career readiness. The goal here is to create a college-going culture across the K-12 grades and with families, and providing concrete information, logistical support, and opportunities for exposure to college and career options. Schools will establish a partnership with a college or university to support the knowledge and understanding of professional careers, skills, and college culture. Students will explore career possibilities and expand their knowledge and understanding of the employable skills and priorities that will establish life skills for a professional career. This process will begin in K4 and K5 through 12th grade using the Career Pathway Program, Zello. Lastly, one of our highlights we are looking forward to is incorporating a signing day event for those in completing grades. This event is designed to engage all of our families and students in the culture of continuing education and making this a school and district-wide event. Next slide, please. The first meeting for the school year was held on September 27th, 2021, with the principal leadership work groups for all three pillars to develop plans for carrying out the strategic priorities for the pillars for the 2021-22 school year. Here is an overview of our strategic priorities for the 2021-2022 school year. The priorities are listed and are identified in the Promise Partnership Strategic Plan Year 1. The priorities capture the direction of the pillar work groups for the 21-22 school year. 1, professional development for 53206 staff on culturally relevant practices. Providing high quality instructional practices, appropriately using the high quality instructional materials. Teacher attraction, retention, and support for educators in 53206 Promise Partnership. We want to take this opportunity to thank both the Board of Directors and the administration on the actions that were taken on last Tuesday night in addressing the #1 challenge across all schools in the 53206 zip code by addressing teacher staff vacancies as well as teacher expertise in our classrooms. We will continue to collaborate with talent management and leaders to execute future plans in this area. Student enrollment and retention. A 53206 Promise Partnership recruitment open house is scheduled for the 21-22 school year. All 53206 schools will be able to showcase their programs to potential students and families. Project-based learning, featuring Project Lead the Way. Next, we want to make sure that all students engage in college and career mapping. Physical and health supports for students and families. Then lastly, a priority for this school year is a comprehensive delivery service plan for trauma support specialists in all of our 8 schools. Next slide. This slide shows the completed work since our last update earlier this year in July. I would draw your attention to the Advisory Council item. We have secured commitments from representatives of key community organizations. We also supported schools in the district adoption of textbooks and materials to begin instruction on day 1. Develop a timeline for all network professional development. Tutoring. In recognizing that we need to address the unfinished learning in students and focusing in on acceleration and moving away from remediation, each school has a tutoring plan and homework plan in place. Next slide. Here's the work in progress. As you can see, we will be touching these items this school year. Schools to create collaborative structures to review curriculum goals, data, and metrics. Network parent coordinators will work with family and community engagement specialists to develop a standard of care for family and community engagement. Next, as we mentioned earlier, making sure that all students engage in college and career focused mapping. Hiring a 53206 program coordinator. Also, engaging in culturally responsive leadership standards and professional development on them. We want to develop a plan for project-based learning and Project Lead the Way. We want to engage all of our schools and our school communities in developing partnerships for mental health. As I mentioned earlier, making sure that we have a comprehensive plan for all trauma support specialists. Each school will establish partnerships with the college and university. Development of common assessments for units of study in math and writing. And then lastly, the last few items we want to be touching this school year is a college and career focus, which includes branding. And then schools will utilize the family and community engagement framework to engage families to focus on schools and tool standards. Then, once again, working collaboratively with talent management on attracting and retaining and supporting teachers in 53206. Then lastly, the development of common formative assessments in math, writing, and support on data-driven culture. This ends our presentation at this time, and we are ready, the team is ready to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that report. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing none, could I pass the gavel to Director Leonard?
So noted.
Go ahead, Director Simpson.
Thank you. So first of all, just thank you so much for the work that's going into this initiative. You know, the old saying, it takes a village, you know, to make things happen. And I'm proud that our district is doing our part to address some of the trauma of 53206 and meet some of the needs of the community. So just thank you for the work you're doing. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the advisory council. Just sort of talk a little bit more about that, its purpose or goals.
So Director Simpson and members of the committee, Dr. Carletta Nolan, Regional Superintendent for the Central Region. Our advisory council will serve as kind of like the group that will help guide us as we continue to work on our strategic plan. This group is comprised of, as Mr. Turner mentioned earlier, that it's comprised of community members, principals, parents, students that represent the entire cohort of schools. So each school will have representation there. We'll have our parents, but they really serve to help make sure that we keep a pulse on what our constituent wants, what our students need, what our families believe that they need, and what our teachers also believe that they need. And keeping us honest in making sure that we are reporting out our metrics, making sure that what we say we will measure, we are. And so that's really the purpose of what this advisory will serve to do.
Thank you. And I'll take the gavel back. Thank you, Director Leonard. Thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi.
This is a lot of work, so thank you. I just want to echo Director Simpson's sentiments. I have just a general question. You know, what more do you need, or where can we be more supportive, or how can we be more supportive? I would just love to hear if you have any asks of us.
Administration.
Director Simpson and members of the committee, Carletta Nolan, Regional Superintendent for the Central Region. I have to be honest in my response about what it is that we need. And I think for me right now, acts such as we had last Tuesday in recognizing that we need the financial support to incentivize for individuals to actually come and teach in these classrooms. I think we also need the continuous support of the departments here, and we do have that, especially focusing in on the academic trajectory of our students, ensuring that we always find a way to address those academics, but also in concert with the social emotional piece. I think we have to have both. And I also know that our superintendent and his cabinet have been very diligent in making sure that we are addressing the needs of our students with like the unfinished learning, ensuring that there's after-school programs in each of these schools to support these communities. One thing that I would also say is that outside of this
the group here in MPS, we have to understand that we operate as an ecosystem, and a part of that ecosystem is the community. And so we send out a call to the community to really become involved, really wrap their arms around this initiative and around these schools, and show up and be present in this community. So that's what we need.
Thank you. Director Gokul-Gandhi, any follow-up?
No, I appreciate that. And I think it would be helpful, alongside presentations like this, to have that conversation about how we can support, or any calls to the community that need to be made for support. It's always good to hear process, but it's also nice to hear honestly from you what it is that you are in need of. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Gokul-Gandhi. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, thank you so much for the work you're doing in that presentation. Truly appreciated. And Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, the last item on tonight's agenda is item number 8, which is a report with possible action on the regional showcase, the Northwest region. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Administration, would you please present this item?
Yes, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. We end this evening's agenda on a high note with the monthly regional showcase. For this evening, Northwest Regional Showcase, we welcome Hawthorne School and Principal Shantae Williams. At this time, I will also ask that Mr. Chapman open up with comments. Mr. Chapman.
Yes. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. I'm Patrick Chapman, the Regional Superintendent Underfield for the Northwest Region. I'm elated to present our regional showcase to you this evening. During our showcase, we will share how we utilize our district resources to support student achievement while in alignment with the 5 priorities for success. This presentation will also highlight the diversity of our school programs in the Northwest region. The district's 5 priorities for success serves as the foundation and reference point for student achievement in the Northwest region. Our leaders are keenly aware that these priorities are aligned with providing a positive, safe learning environment that's conducive to student learning. The importance of developing staff and collaborating with other departments is often emphasized in our quest for continuous improvement. An example of this collaboration is with the MPS Recreation Department that supports our Northwest schools through the CLC programs, camps, and safe place sites. I had to mention this because coming back from being virtual to in-face learning, this was a strong parental request for the schools in the Northwest region. There are 17 K-5 schools and 8 K-8 schools in the Northwest region. We have schools with an academic specialty such as Craig Montessori, Milwaukee German Immersion, and the Milwaukee Sign Language School. In addition, many of our schools have engaging STEM and agricultural programs that prepare students with the skills for college and career readiness. Currently, we have 6 schools that are part of the Milwaukee Vincent High School agricultural cohort. The Northwest region is comprised of 25 schools that serves approximately 8,051 students. Of these students, 77.4% are Black, 5.9% white, 5.9% Asian, 5.5% of our students are considered 2 or more ethnicities, 5% Hispanic, 0.4 American Indian, and 0.1 Hawaiian Pacific Islander. The Northwest region's academic data from the most recent DPI report card showed the following learning expectations ratings in the following categories. 1 school significantly exceeded expectations. 3 schools exceeded expectations. 10 schools met expectations. 8 schools met few expectations, and 3 schools that failed to meet expectations. 20 of our schools were deducted 5 points on the DPI report card because of student absenteeism rates of 13% or more. This deduction prevented many of our schools from achieving a higher expectation rating. Additionally, 13 of our schools are identified as CSI schools, which means comprehensive school improvement. These schools receive extra support in literacy and math. With this support, coupled with ambitious instruction that's culturally relevant and interventions with progress monitoring, we are confident that our schools will continue to increase in the area of student achievement. Many of our schools have received statewide recognition for response to intervention, RTI, from the Department of Instruction. The principles of RTI involves meeting the students where they're at academically and providing interventions for improvement. Now at this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Shantae Williams, the proud principal of Hawthorne School and multiple RTI recipient award winner. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Yes, my name is Shantae Williams, and I am the principal of Hawthorne, home of the Savvy Hawks. Our theme for this year is Hawthorne in 3, and we're on the path to an academic championship. We say that because the Bucks can't be the only ones getting a championship. So in 3 years, you're going to see us exceeding expectations. So be on the watch. Next, Hawthorne Elementary demographics. Currently, our enrollment is 256. So we went up. We have no English language learners, 18.6 students with disability, and 93% economically disadvantaged. I also want to add, to date, our attendance is 88.9%, and we only have 1 incident referral. School report card. Meet few expectations. This data is from the 2016 all the way into 2018-19 school year. But I want to say it increased from 39.4% in 2017 to 51.8% in 2018-19. That's when I became principal in 2018-19. So that's an increase of 12%. So I'm excited about that. But we have to work on the deduction of absenteeism. So we did get deducted 5 points, but we're working on that. Hawthorne's vision. Hawthorne School believes in providing a community where families and staff collaborate a safe and nurturing environment by providing standard-based instruction with academic rigor and support for both academics and behavior. I'm really proud of our programs that we have at Hawthorne as well. We have our Head Start program. We just got our Surge grant, which was implemented last year for advanced learners. And we have a gifted intelligent program infused with STEM. Also Sharp Literacy, Camp Hawthorne, which is a part of the CLC, Milwaukee Rec, and our Green School Consortium of Milwaukee Playground Renovation, which we break ground next year. Exciting times at Hawthorne. Points of pride. Incentives. We have an array of incentives for our students, academically, with attendance and behavior. I'll just share some with academics. We have Pop Stars. That's where we pop popcorn for all the students at Hawthorne when they're exceeding expectations in the classroom. And also our attendance program, we have Munch Mondays. So when kiddos go home on a Friday, we get them back on Mondays to give them whether a healthy treat, maybe some chips every once in a while, and cookies. It just depends on how we feel, but they're coming to school because they want to be there. Also, we have our traveling attendance trophy that we give and our attendance mentors, SWAG, students with attendance goals. And last but not least, our behavior. We have our Hawk Bucks, our Hawk Cart, and our fabulous Hawk's Nest. You got to come by and check it out. Our next wide range of student activities include soccer, basketball, cheerleading, flag football, and Girls on the Run. Our family engagement includes our monthly SEC meetings, PTO meetings, DAC meetings, virtual family fun nights, holiday drive-through food activities, and our annual backpack giveaway. Costco provides us with backpacks every year. Our equitable system of support. We are recognized by the RTI Center in 2018-19 with a bronze, but I must say, in 2020 and 21, we came home with the gold. Not only an Olympian, go Hawthorne. All right, and we have dedicated staff. We have many veteran staff. They've been there over 17 years and a low teacher turnover rate. I believe the only time our staff leaves if anyone's retired or they just move out of state. I always tell everyone Hawthorne is the best school to work at due to our systems in place and positive school culture and climate for all. Last but not least, our school partnerships. We have the Milwaukee Urban League, Black Arts Milwaukee, Horace Mann, Costco, Dr. Lee and Family, MATC, their Child Education Department, the Hunger Task Force, which includes the Penny Drive, Target with the reusable Chromebooks, and Aurora Healthcare, our Thanksgiving vouchers for our families. Opportunities for growth. Well, we know we have to keep going because again, Hawthorne in 3. We're working on to decrease the academic achievement gap, increase accelerated instruction, continue standard-based teaching on grade level, continue conversation on relationship building through cultural responsive instruction and classroom management, increase attendance, reduce absenteeism, emphasize social emotional curriculum, and increase associated activities, which includes mental health. Maintain and improve positive culture and climate. Well, this concludes the presentation for this evening, and you all are more than welcome to visit at any time. And just a side note, I want to publicly thank Dr. Herman for supporting Hawthorne at the 5th annual Green and Healthy School Conference. Thank you so much. And now I would open up for questions.
Wow, thank you so much for that report. It was fabulous. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who'd wish to comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Thank you so much. Do members of the committee wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard and then Director Gokul Gandhi. Director Leonard.
Just love that energy. I will have to just say that, okay? I love it. It's so important for staff. And I was good to hear low turnover, and I wasn't surprised by hearing your presentation. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that someday I will come by and check out your school because I love to see that kind of positive environment. I think it's always good to take those examples and share them in other schools wherever you can. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Yes, I would have to echo Director Leonard's sentiment. I would want you to be my principal. So thank you for that energy. I also just want to make a point, we read a lot in the news about people in the community having random opinions about our district. And you just showed that none of that is true. And we are working, you are all working really hard to surpass expectations. And I feel a lot of pride to be a part of this. And just hearing your honesty about where the weaknesses are, but celebrating the wins, that's how we move forward, not by disparaging the members of this community. And so I just want to thank you for your commitment to excellence.
Thank you, Director Gokul Gandhi. Administration, any comments?
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, I just want to say that we have 158 outstanding schools, 158 outstanding leaders and teachers and students in this great district. And this is just a mere sample of the excellence that happens on a daily basis in the Milwaukee Public Schools. So continue to tell our story. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to make a comment as well. I have several schools in the Northwest region. And one of the things that I learned walking through them is exactly what you said. Just example after example after example of just wonderful schools in our district, Hawthorne being one of them, that you may not hear about, but they're out there if people would just investigate a little bit further and open up their eyes and ears to what's around them. We have just amazing schools in our district. So just wanted to thank you for all of the work that you're doing. And any further comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for that great presentation. And Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
There being no further business before this committee, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.